So I think that in this game, the best thing to start with is the victory conditions.
Okay.
So do you, on the module, do you have the Walkdom Rhyme button available?
Which button?
Up along the top, next to your button that says G3 Nuts, do you have the Walkdom Rhyme button?
Yeah, it sure does. And it brings up a card map.
Yeah, and it shows those three cards down below, right?
Yep.
So let's take a look at those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to secretly select one of these cards as my victory condition.
Okay.
And you won't know, although you might discover which thing I'm going for. And obviously, knowing what I'm trying to do would help you a lot. So Case Martin and Operation Aachen are like are non-historical plans that I think all the historians think if the Germans had tried this, it would have been a better thing for them to do. So we'll start with Walkdom Rhyme. This is what's called the Grand Slam victory. If I choose this victory condition, then what I have to do to win is at the end of any of my player turns, I have to have a supplied German army unit occupying Antwerp or Brussels and also Liège or Namur. So that's the basic victory condition that I occupy two of those two cities. So you see Namur and Liège there are currently garrisoned by American units, and Antwerp and Brussels are way back there garrisoned by the British. So if I choose that one, I'd say I'm going for the whole ball of wax. And then I get additional victory levels based on, let's see what I get here. Oh, no, never mind. I just either win or I lose the Grand Slam victory. +1 for each man. Oh, no, I could get, if I occupy all four of those cities, I would get 2 additional victory levels. So that's the big thing. Operation Martin is, again, at the end of the game. So if I choose one of these small objectives, it's easier for me to accomplish, but I have to hold it for the entire game. The Walkdom Rhyme objective, if I hit it, if I happen to get it on turn 5 or something, I win. And the way this game works, as in history, is the longer the game goes on, the stronger the Allies get and the weaker I get. So for Case Martin, if I, at the end of the game, if I have a supplied army unit occupying Luxembourg City and at least one Allied supply depot, and Operation Aachen is I occupy both Aachen and at least one supply depot. And then you'll notice on the cards, it says Germans also gain 1 victory level if. So you have a couple of cards in your hand that if you use them, if I'm doing one of these small objectives, it gives me a victory level just because you used it. So for Operation Aachen, if you commit the U.S. Third Army, then I gain a victory level. And you might not know before you make that commitment whether it's going to apply or not. And I'll gain a victory level if you play the Strategic Reserve event if I've chosen Case Martin. So as you're picking cards to play, that's part of your thought process is if I'm going to bring the Third Army in right at the beginning of the game, that could give him a victory level. Do I really need that? And then there are casualty victory levels. When there's disproportionate losses, you can gain victory levels. So if I cause you 3 more casualties than I suffer, I get a victory level per 3 and vice versa. So if you end up with 6 casualties and I end up with 3, whatever my victory level is, it's increased by 1 and vice versa. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And as you go through your cards, what those victory level card plays do is going to make more sense to you as we
Okay.
talk about that. So before we start, I'm going to be so now my card should be masked at this point, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to. Oops! Did that card just reveal to you?
No, but I saw which one disappeared.
Is it
Well, they
revealed?
were flipped over and masked, but there were 1, 2, and 3.
Oh,
And
I know what that
you
is.
need to shuffle
I got this wrong. This is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take these cards and shuffle them
Right, there you go.
out of sight of you, and then I'm going to put the objective token on one of those cards. Now, there are cards that you can play that will allow you to reveal my non-objective. So you could play a card and you could take this and do this. And so now you know I'm not going for Operation Aachen. So now you can safely commit the Third Army without having to worry about giving me a victory level. You get how that works?
Yep.
And then if you take that same action a second time during the game, now you know exactly what I'm trying to do.
Right.
You don't get to look at it again.
Don't need to.
Although,
Yeah.
by rule, like, you know what the objective is. It's not, I mean, like, no, never mind, I'm wrong about that, actually. At that point, I do, in fact, flip it up so you get to read it. Okay, so that's how we're going to determine victory. And, all right, so now let's go through, let's talk about just what the map is like and what units are. Okay, the map, very cool way they did this map, I think. It's a lot like point-to-point movement. In fact, I guess it is point-to-point movement. I'm going to, there's no button to invisible units, is there?
No button to what?
There's not a button that allows you to make all the units invisible the way there is in some modules.
I don't see that
So
now.
I'm just going to drag my units off, okay?
Okay.
So the Army Group B, Walter Modell, that's my headquarters thing. You can never enter the headquarters. That's sort of like my home base. You have in the lower left the 12th Army headquarters area.
Yep.
And in the north, you have the 21st Army headquarters area for the British. The British don't tend to come in till later in the game, unless the Germans are making a strong push towards Wacht am Rhein. The British don't tend to play a big part in this. They're like a bailout option at the end. And you'll see the terrain effects chart there. The gray dot is a town or open terrain. There's no effect there. I'm going to talk about depots in a minute. The hexagon, is that a hexagon?
Yep.
Six-sided? Yeah, that's the west wall. That gives a defensive bonus to the Germans. The brown lines are roads or axis of advances. The green dots are forests. The stars are cities, so I'm going to move your garrison there. So Liege is a city. And I'm going to move your unit out of Aachen. That's not a crossroads. I'm looking for a cross. Okay, if you look towards Bastogne, down near the bottom of the map, you see that crossroad symbol there, right?
Yep.
A crossroad is something that extends a line of communication and helps with supply. And so holding a crossroad is good. You know, obviously the Germans want to get Bastogne if they can. Certainly, if they're going for Grand Slam, they need to get Bastogne pretty early. And then the blue is the river. German units, when they cross a river, have to stop, even if they would normally have extra movement. And when you attack across a river, only 2 corps can be engaged in that attack. And that will, of course, make sense when we talk about combat. Units, you'll see that you have the 9th Army in Aachen, commanded by Simpson, and you have the 1st Army commanded by Hodges down in St. Vith, which is also a crossroad. And you'll see these tokens are slightly bigger than this 3/2 token you have. So an army is comprised of many corps, and each individual corps is this little counter. So in garrisoning Eisenborn there, you have a corps. That's an armored corps. American armies are all mechanized armies. You're going to place the third corps when we get ready to go. The German armies are either Panzer armies, so these are the Panzer armies, or they're infantry armies. And the last units out here are these garrisons. Each supply depot has a garrison in it. If you control the depot, that's what it looks like. If I take control of this depot, then I'd flip it like this. I don't have a garrison there anymore, but it indicates that I control it. If you retake it, you garrison it again.
Okay.
And yeah, that's how garrisons work. Now, along the top, next near the using the module button to the left, let's open up your OOB, the Allied OOB.
Yep.
So once the game gets started, there's the little counter button up in next to the minus sign. Did I just make your units invisible?
No.
No, okay, so I did mine that way then. So go ahead and click that button yourself.
When you say the minus sign, is that to zoom in and zoom out?
The zoom out button. Next to it, there's the black counter. It says to reveal OOB units.
Okay.
Click on that button.
Okay, I zoomed out.
No, don't zoom out. Click on the button next to it.
The magnet. Oh, okay, it's to the right there. Okay, I'm
To
sorry.
the right, yeah. Yeah, okay, so now when you do that, it makes your units invisible to me, except for the armies. So right now, the only thing I can see in your order of battle is Dempsey's Second Army and Patton's Third Army.
Okay.
So as you play the game, we're going to do that because we can look at each other's OOB mat, and even if we accidentally click the button, seeing what's there can be bad. So go ahead and uninvisible it. Click that button again. So here's the way the armies and corps work in this game. The 21st Army Group headquarters is basically the same place as the 21st Army headquarters on the map. That's your main staging area. So right now in the 21st, you have Miles Dempsey's Second Army waiting to come on. But there are no, if you look to the right, you'll see there are no units assigned to the Second Army. There are no corps. So that's just a non-existent unit right now.
Where's the Second Army? I don't see it.
In the 21st Army Group headquarters in your OOB mat,
Oh, I see it now.
Second Army is there. But to the right in the actual Second Army box, there are no units.
Okay.
There are no corps. So it would have been better for me to start this way. Let's look at the 12th Army Group headquarters. So that's your main force. That's where you are making command decisions. And you'll see the connections branching out from 12th Army Group headquarters to the 1st Army, the 9th Army, and the 3rd Army.
Correct.
So in your reinforcement units, you'll see you've got Patton's 3rd Army, and then you've got 2 corps down there. And you'll notice that in the 3rd Army box, all those units are upside down. That's to indicate that that army's not available to you yet. That's the 3rd Army event that you can play, which will commit Patton to the fight.
Okay.
So your 1st and 9th armies. So the 9th Army you have in Aachen, and that's commanded by Simpson. So you'll see the Army counter is in Aachen, and in the box where it says 9th U.S. Army, that's the corps that comprise the 9th Army. So you have three corps in that army right now. So in terms of in-game terminology, the Army counter is the unit. If a corps is on the map by itself, it's a unit. So in terms of being allowed to move units or do things with units, you can either do them with an army, which moves all its corps at once, or with an individual corps. So the main stuff you're trying to do, you do with your armies because you get more combat power that way. The 1st Army, which is in St. Vith, only has a single core in it right now. And then the 12th Army Group headquarter box has the paratroopers in it. It's got the Band of Brothers. And one of the things that you can do with cards is assign core from the 12th Army Group headquarters to your individual armies. But that's done by card play. And if you just quick look at open up the German order of battle map, you'll see, I think you should see my units at this point. And so I'm allowed to rearrange these units. Now they should be invisible to you, right?
They are.
Yeah, so to start the game, I can assign these units as I wish. Your setup is as it is. You don't get to change it. So I think the best thing to do, moving. Let's talk about moving here. There's a place where it shows movement. The Americans move a little bit faster than the Germans. I thought there was a place on the map where it shows this. Anyway, no, it's based on infantry or army. So so supply is important in this game. You have your supply sources are the areas with the big green half circles around them, Namur, Liege, and to be in supply, one of your units, whether it's an army or an individual corps, has to be able to trace an unimpeded line of communication. For you, it's 3 spaces. So your first army, if it looks northwest to Malmedy and then to Liege, is 2 spaces away. But if I happen to have a German unit like this, the first army could still look through Houffalize, then Marsh, and then Namur, and it would still be in supply. The Germans have to be 2 spaces from one of their supply sources. If you occupy a crossroads, so if I occupy Bastogne, and I think St. Vith is the other one, that allows me to extend my line of communication by 2 additional spaces. So one of the things that I need to do as I move across the map is I need to capture these crossroads. And then when I capture a depot, that becomes a supply source for me and not for you. So that's how supply works. Let's talk about, so in the sequence of play, the game goes like this. The game begins with my action phase. Let me just check, make sure I got the setup thing right. So I draw, as part of setup, I'm going to pick 7 staff cards, including my Friction of War card, which we'll talk about. But the Allies start with no cards. So then I'm going to do my action phase, where I'm going to use cards to do things. Then at the end of that, when I'm all done, we're going to do there's going to be the planning phase, where I'm going to select cards from my card deck for my hand. And you're going to do, I'm sorry, you get 4 cards to start. Then you're going to play your turn, and then you're going to draw your cards. So the important thing there is we're going to have cards in our hand when our turn starts. We're going to play our turn, and then we're going to draw cards which we will have available for the upcoming player's turn and then for our own turn. So you got to try to plan ahead what you think you're going to want to do, but of course, enemy actions can screw you up. So the game is played from the perspective of being a staff officer. So demonstrate that you're using staff officer actions to conduct the battle. And so that's why they call the cards the G1, G2, G3, G4. Those are different typical staff assignments. G1 is the administrative staff, G2 the intelligence, G3 operations, and G4 logistics. So we're going to talk about the individual cards now. And one of the things that you need to do is look sort of, so open up your card hand. I can't see yours and you can't see my card hand. But what you will see in your card hand is a bunch of cards, and if you grab one of the, you'll see some cards that just say G1, G2, G3, and they don't have any text outside of the box, outside of the brown box. Is that making sense?
Like that?
And then you've got some that that have text. So the non-text cards are your generic cards. They stay with you throughout the game. The event cards are cards where you can play the event that's written on the card, and then it's discarded, or you can use it as the general staff action. So we're going to start by talking about what the general staff action cards allow you to do, and then we'll talk about events. So G1 administration. When you play a G1 action, you're allowed to do the following things. You can assign a corps to an army. So if you go back to your order of battle map, you'll see the in the 12th Army Group headquarters is the 1-3 paratroop unit, and that unit is waiting to be assigned. So if you play a G1 card, you can move that unit, that corps, to any army that you want. So in this case, you could probably assign it to the 1st Army. That would be one administrative action. You could also transfer a corps from an army group, from an army to Army Group headquarters. So this is an important part of the staff thing. Let's say you want to shuffle some strength from the 9th Army to the 1st Army. You would play a G1 card and you would move a corps into the Army Group headquarters. Then you would have to play a second G1 card to assign that corps to the 1st Army. Now you can do all that in one turn, but you've got only as many cards as you've got. So reassigning corps to different armies is a somewhat involved process. You can detach a corps from an army. So you have the 9th Army is up there in Aachen. Let's say you think that you want to pull the 9th Army out, but you don't want to leave the area completely undefended. So as a G1 action, you could take any one of your corps from the 9th Army and put that on the map in any empty, friendly controlled adjacent space. And now that corps is an independent unit. And you could then move the army and then move the corps, and vice versa. When you play it to detach a unit, you do not move. You cannot detach a corps from the Army Group headquarters. You don't. You can't take the paratroops and say, I'm detaching them, and then put them out and give that there. They have to be in an army first to be detached. During battle, corps are going to become disorganized if they suffer losses. So in your order of battle map, the 1st Army, I'm going to flip that corps. You see he's got the stripe there, and his numbers are poorer.
Yep.
As a G1 action, you can reorganize any one corps that's in supply and return it to full strength. Each army unit has to have at least one corps in its box to exist on the map. If during battle the 1st Army loses its only remaining corps and it becomes eliminated, it's going to go to the replacement pool, and then the army token itself has to also come off the map and can be sent back out later after the army is constituted. But it's not like you have to lose all the core to lose the army. Okay. When there's a core on the map, so in Eisenboard, you've got an armored core there, you can play cards that, you can play movement cards and things like that, or reconstitute them on the map as well as on the order of battle map. And then there are some cards that give you reinforcements. So, if you play the card Patton's 3rd U.S. Army, if you play that as an event, then you take the 3rd Army counter out of the reinforcement unit and you stick it right in the Omar Bradley box, and then you rotate the your units back up, and now that army is out there fighting and available to do whatever an army would do. If you play the commit strategic reserve, the allied player moves the 2 listed cores, and it'll say on the card where they go. Okay, so that's the G1 thing. Each army can have no more than 4 core in it, minimum of 1, maximum of 4, anything in between. For you, all of your core are either armored or mechanized, except for the paratroopers. So your armies, in most cases, are going to be considered mechanized, and that gives them some advantages in advancing after combat and such. For the Germans, I can create an all-Panzer army, but I have to do that specifically to give it that advantage, and there's risks to that. Okay, so that's the G1 box. The G2 cards, the intelligence division, these are the things you can do with that. During a battle, we can each play 1 G2 card to gain first fire, and I'll talk about that when we do combat. To play, you can play 1 for operational intelligence. So if you open up the German order of battle map, you'll see that I currently have it invisible.
Right.
If you play a G2 card and say, I'm playing this for operational intelligence, I have to reveal my units to you, let you take a look at them, and then in the game, in the rules it says a moment, we always just play like when, however long you want. Then I invisible them again, so you get to take a peek at what my current situation is, which can be helpful. So that's operational intelligence. Strategic intelligence, you can look at my card hand. So I'd have to show you all the cards in my hand, and I'd have to pull them out onto the map to show you the way the module is.
So when you draw cards, you just pick and choose out of the stacks, because everything is visible and laid out, kind of.
That's right. You get free choice from any available card every time you build your deck for a turn.
Okay.
And cards that are event cards get discarded and not reused. But if you use an event card as a generic action, it stays. So if you take the Patton card into your hand and you don't use the event, you'll get to bring it back. Okay?
Okay.
So you can look at the you can look at my card hand, and then theater intelligence, that's what I was talking about with the objectives. You can play 1 card, 1 G2 card, and say it's theater intelligence, and you get to look at one of my unselected objectives. That's what we did earlier. And then there's counterintelligence. So if it's my turn and I play a G2 card for intelligence and I say, this is operational intelligence, I want to look at your order of battle. If you have a G2 card in your hand, you can play it to cancel my card.
Okay.
If it's used for operational, strategic, or theater intelligence only. An event cannot be canceled. And then there's security, so you can counter the counter. So I could say, I'm playing this G2 card to look at your mat. You could play a G2 card and say, no, I'm counterintelligencing you. And I can play another G2 card if I have one and say, no, I've got security. So then I will counter your counter, and my original card would would go. And we could do that forever. If we have nothing but G2 cards in our hand, we can just keep playing them like that.
Looks like there's only 2 in my hand there, right?
I think if you drag, if you select a card and drag it, you'll see that there are actually stacks of them in that each one of those piles is a stack. So if you take any one of your event cards and just move it off to the side, there might be an event still underneath it.
I see a G2 card for intelligence, and there's 2 of those, and then there's 1 G2 Malmedy Massacre revealed.
Yep. So that's the total number of those cards that you have. So you can put for any given turn, you can have 2 G2 intelligence generic cards in your hand available for use, and you could use that G2 event as a generic card and not lose the event.
Okay.
All right. Operations is G3, and this is how you move around and fight. So you can play I'm going to start by talking about strategic movement. You can play a G3 card and say, I'm doing strategic movement on the first army. When you, so this is where I've got to figure out the moves here. Give me just a second. It doesn't say it. It must say it on the game, in the game component itself. Yeah, okay. So for tactical movement, an armored unit or an army consisting of all armored units can move 1 or 2 spaces. An infantry unit or an army with 1 infantry unit in it can move 1 space. For strategic movement, you can go 1 additional space. So your first army right now consists of a single mechanized corps. If you were going to move it strategically, you could move it 3 spaces as long as all 3, up to 3 spaces, as long as all 3 spaces were friendly controlled spaces, and you can't use that to come get into a battle. You can also use a D3 card for tactical movement. I'm sorry, and for strategic movement, your unit has to be in supply. For tactical movement, you do not have to be in supply to use it as tactical. So you could move the first army. You say, I'm going to move it 2 spaces. You could go like 1, 2, like that for tactical movement. That probably wouldn't be a great move, but you could do it. Or you can attack it, or you can attack with it. So if it's your turn to start and the first army is here and my 7th army is here, you could play a G2 card and say, I'm attacking. The first army is attacking the 7th army.
G2 or G3?
I'm sorry, G3, yes.
Okay.
If you have a unit in Clairvaux, is that what it is? Clairvaux?
Yep.
If you also have a unit in Clairvaux, you could play a second G2 card and say it's also attacking. If you had me surrounded, you could play 3 G3 cards and attack me from all 3 directions, and we'll see how that works when we go through battles. But normally you play 1 card at a time and resolve what that card does. But with combat, you can play multiple cards to bring multiple units into the attack, and that's a good thing when you do it. If you have enough G3 cards, you can attack. You can have the same unit attack over and over again, and it can keep attacking the same unit, or it can attack different units. The only limit to how many actions you can perform is that you survive and that you have the cards to make it happen. All right, so let's talk about how combat works. I don't know if you have the rules there or not.
I do.
So we're on page 5, the battle sequence.
Oops.
So you would make the declaration. I'm gonna just set up a fake battle here. let's say you decide to attack. You decide to attack with the 9th Army and the 7th Corps out of Bastogne against my 5th Army. Is way cut off there in Hopefullies. So you would play your G3 cards to do the combat. You would play one G3 card on one of your units, and that's your main unit that's attacking. And then additional units come in with other cards. We will then, from our hands, we will secretly commit any cards that we want, any of the G2, G3, or G4 cards. So we'll talk about how the cards work. Then we're going to go to the battle mat, and there is the battle mat. See the button along the top of the module that says Combat Results?
Let's see. Yep.
So if you open that up, you'll see the battle map. And so you'll see the main battle group, they're facing off against each other. And then there are some spaces on either side of that to indicate the additional attacking groups. So if you're attacking with the 9th Army and that 1 Corps, you're going to put, if you made your 9th Army your main force, they're going to go in the main group thing, and your 3-2 Armor Corps is going to go as an additional attacking group, doesn't matter which side it's on. And then you're attacking my 5th Army, which consists of these units here. So we lay these units out. We're going to have some cards. And you'll see on this battle map, it shows the terrain effects. So if you are attacking out of a forest space, and St. Vith is not a forest space, so you don't have to worry about that. If you're attacking out of a forest space, only 2 of your corps can be committed at the beginning. So if that were true, you'd have 2 units engaged and 1 unit in reserve, and you would sort of pick which ones they were. But you're not attacking out of a forest, so you are attacking with your entire army. And the units that are engaged are the units that are rolling dice in combat, so that it's a significant disadvantage to attack out of a forest space. So then we're going to reveal all units and put them out there. And if we have any battle support cards for G2, G3, or G4, we're going to reveal them. So here's how those cards work in battle. Normally, the defender fires first in a combat, but if the attacker plays a G2 card, then he gets to be he gets a tactical advantage, so he would fire first. If the defender also has a G2 card, then he retains tactical advantage. So as we get ready to fight the battle, we're secretly putting cards out that we want. And if one of them is a G2 card for you, you fire first. There are also cards that, and we haven't gone through all the cards, but there are cards that allow you to get bonuses in combat and things like that. And then we're going to roll the dice. So just to go through the combat sequence here, if this is just a regular combat with no cards committed, I'm the defender, so I'm going to roll first. I've got, in defense right here, I have my 3 corps, and the numbers are attack strength and defense strength. So 2/2 means attacks with 2 and defends with 2. So I'm going to defend with 6 dice here. And I'm going to roll the 6 dice. And I rolled a 1, 1, 3, 4, 4, 4. So I did nothing to you. I didn't hurt you at all.
That's like one of my rolls.
You're now going to attack with you also have 6 dice, so you'll do the same thing.
And I'm looking at the attack strength, right?
Right, the attack strength. So, and you rolled 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5. A 6 is a hit, and a 5 is a retreat. So I'm going to just try to get myself a hit here. So I'm starting again, pretending we didn't have those last rolls. Continuing to start again. Continuing to start again. There we go. Okay, so let's say my defense roll was that 3, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first thing you would do is apply the hit. So you would have to pick a unit and flip it to take on that hit that I gave you. You don't do anything with the retreats yet. Now you're going to attack. At this point now you'll be attacking with 5 dice instead of 6 because you suffered a loss. So now you're going to attack. Ba-boom. 3, 3, 4, 4, 5. So you did no hits to me, but you did force me to take a retreat, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. And I have to see what to do about these extra units here. I think that when there's an extra attacking unit, we fight all those battles first. Just give me a second here.
No problem.
Is resolved before the next one can commence. So I have one retreat that I have to resolve because you dinged me with a retreat. So normally I would have to retreat back towards supply. At this point, I'm not any place that I can retreat. So I could also take a retreat and turn it into a hit. So now I don't have to do the retreat. But if the battle was happening here, I would have taken my retreat and run back that way, and you could have then advanced after combat. So that's how so 6 is a hit and a 5 is a retreat. The attacker might also have to retreat. You may have some unresolved retreats, and you might have to decide to take a retreat as a hit instead so that you can then advance, right? Like if you had to retreat. And if you have more than one retreat, you can only retreat one space, and then you have to just take them as hits. The terrain that the battle is fought in affects these things. When you're defending in a city space, you can reduce the number of hits or retreats you suffer by 1. It's your choice. If the Germans are defending in West Wall space, it's the same thing. Hits or retreats reduced by 1. And if the side has an army unit in the battle, it may reduce the number of retreats only by 1, and they're cumulative. So if you're defending with an army in a city, you can reduce the number of hits or retreats by 1 and also take 1 fewer retreat. Okay?
Okay.
I think I may have messed the setup up here. We'll sort that out.
That's okay. I figure after we're done, we'll close and reset.
Yeah, probably so. Okay, so if a unit is eliminated, it goes to the replacement pool on your order of battle map. If the unit was out of supply when it's eliminated, it's permanently eliminated. It can't be reconstituted. And so that's more or less how battles work. The cards have different interactions in the battle that will change that around. So that's the G3 card used to start a battle. Okay, there's more actions for G3 cards. There are air support cards, and if you look in your hand of cards, some of your G3 cards are going to have an airplane unit, an icon in the upper left corner.
Interdiction.
Yeah. And those cards are available to be played as air support. Some of them can be reused, some of them can't. I think mostly the Americans can be reused. The Germans sometimes have their air support cards are one-time uses. So before I talk about air support, we got to talk about weather. briefly. If you go back to the map, along the top you'll see a card that says bad weather, no close air support, air cover, or air supply actions. So these actions that we're going to talk about next, many of them cannot be performed unless unless the weather is good. And at the end of each turn, there's a chance for the weather to change to good or to change back to bad. So close air support. So on good weather turns only, when we're getting ready to fight a battle, you can put a G3 card into your deck to act as close air support, or you can commit it to the battle. And each card will, and I don't see your cards, but each card will give a bonus that it will say on the card what its bonus is. Where are my American cards? All right. So, for instance, let me find one of the American air cards in here. So the U.S. Air Force 9th Air Force card. It's got 2 planes on it for close air support and 1 plane on it for interdiction. So if you're using it for close air support, you get 2 more dice that you roll. If you're using it for interdiction, you're going to roll a single die. And you can only use American planes to support American attacks and British to support British. So that's close air support. Interdiction is when you have a G3 card in your hand and you want to play it as interdiction. That's not in a battle. It's an action that you do. You roll the number of die that the card gives you to roll, and for every 4, 5, or 6, I have to randomly pick a card from my hand and discard it. And there's a box on the module that allows us to do random discards. I get to know obviously which card it is, and you don't get to know what it was, but that can screw up the plans pretty good.
Is it removed from the game?
No, just removed from my hand for that turn. It becomes available again, and if it's an event, it doesn't trigger the event. It just leaves it for later. So if I've got one of my big like auto scores knee I'm planning to do a commando raid, and I'm all excited, and then you interdict it and get rid of that card, that sucks for me. Air cover, again, during good weather cards only, sort of like with the G2 cards, it's a cancel card. So if I play an air card, if I play a card for close air support or for interdiction, you can play one from your hand to cancel it. Okay? Not an event. You can't cancel an event, but you can cancel the use of the card for close air support.
Very good.
Yeah, and then you can cancel it with a G3 card, like you can cancel it, then cancel the same way you can with the intelligence. So those are the G3 actions. Now we've got the G4 logistics actions, and then we're basically ready to roll. G4 logistical action card, that's the card that allows you to do strategic movement, which gives you 1 extra space, but your unit has to be in supply, and it can only move through friendly controlled spaces. So that's the way, like if you bring Patton in way in the rear there, that's the way to get him into the fight quickly. A G4 card can be used as combat support. So that would be when we're fighting a battle and we're secretly committing cards, we can commit a G4 card. As long as the unit that's in the battle can trace supply, you can do that. And when for each G4 card that you play for support, you get +1 combat factor for every friendly corps engaged in the battle. So that can be a lot. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I missed the first one. Strategic move.
strategic move is it's a kind of movement where. So let's, for instance, say you wanted to. If you were going to do strategic movement with the First Army, normally using tactical movement, the First Army would be allowed to move 2 spaces. With strategic movement, it's allowed to move 3 spaces. But when you're strat moving, you can only move through enemy or through friendly controlled spaces. So if the First Army was way down here and the Germans controlled Houffalize, you couldn't use strategic movement to go through Houffalize and go to St. Vith. You'd have to stop at Marche.
Okay.
And the unit has to be in supply at the beginning to use strategic movement. A unit can do tactical movement if it's out of supply. So if the First Army was there, and I'm just going to make this up here. If your First Army was in St. Vith and I was, this is all fake here, but and I had those 3 towns occupied. You're not in supply right now, so you can't use strategic movement. If you were in supply, you could use strategic movement, but you wouldn't be allowed to use strategic movement to go into Houffalize because I control that. Does that make sense? Okay, well, we're just going to reset these. So that's what strategic movement is. Then there's combat support and reconstitution. So on your order of battle map, as corps are eliminated, they'll be in your replacement pool. You can play a G4 card to move it from your replacement pool into the Army headquarters box. So let's say, if you look in your Army, if your order of battle map, let's say the paratroopers were wiped out, you could play a G4 card and send it back to the Army group headquarters. And then with other cards, you could then assign it to an Army. And, no, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. You would take it, here's how you'd reconstitute it. I think I made this mistake in one game. Let's say it's turn 3. And you're going to reconstitute this. You would take the unit and put it on the turn 3 marker, and then you would roll a single die, and that's 2. So then it would be 1, 2, delayed 2 turns, and then at the beginning of your turn, it would come in to your Army group headquarters.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
Okay.
That delay roll.
It can be terrible. It definitely can be. The good news is most units that the Americans have eliminated happen early, so they tend to get them back eventually.
Okay.
And you have a card called the 9 Troop Carrier Command G4 card. That's an event. And that, on good weather turns only, that allows you to do a couple of different things. It allows you to put a unit in air supply, which would mean, like, if you had a unit that was cut off and you were afraid it was going to be in battle, even if that unit was eliminated, if it was in air supply, you'd be allowed to reconstitute it later.
Okay.
And it also allows you to do a combat support action. So, in other words, to use a G4 card for combat support, your unit has to be in supply. But if you have an air supply token on the map, that could be a supply source, so an adjacent hex can have combat support. And that card you use over and over again. And so initially that's not going to be an issue. But as the game progresses, if you're looking to be out of supply, we'll talk more about how the air supply thing helps. And so those are all the cards and all the actions. At the end of each turn, we have to make a die roll to see if the weather changes. And it says on the card, roll a 5 or 6 changes the weather to clear. So at end of turn 1, we'll roll the die. Actually, it's the beginning of the turn. Sorry. We're going to roll to see if the weather changes.
Oh, that's right. And so we'll know at the end of the turn if the next turn's weather is going to be different. We will know that. And then, so you'll know it'll be good weather coming up. So you'll know that you'll be able to use some air cards. And when the weather is good, you get one extra card in your hand. If you look at the turn record track, it shows, on each turn, it shows the number of cards. So to start on turn 1, the Germans get 7, and the Americans get 5. That means the number of cards you get during the planning phase of that turn. And so you'll see the German cards decrease over time and the American cards increase. Into turn 8, which is like the German's last gasp attempt. All right? So, somewhat confused, but have a basic idea of what to do?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
All right, good. So let's, I'm gonna close the game and restart one just to get the setup correct. So I'm closing it. I'm not gonna save it.
Okay.
I'm going to select the Germans, or you can sync with me.